Whatever you want.
All right, so we're gonna jump right in. Mayor Pro Tem, can we record? Because we need the people to know exactly what we're working on.
Yes, you can.
Okay, good. I see the recording logo, so that's good. Brittany, I'm gonna start with you. I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just kind of go round robin.
Okay, good morning, Pro Tem Adams. My name is Brittany Battle. I'm with Triad Abolition Project. I'm also faculty in the sociology department at Wake Forest.
Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie Jones. I am with Hate Out of Winston, and I am a permanently disabled part-time educator.
Thank you. Bailey.
Hi, I'm Bailey Pittenger. I'm with Triad Abolition Project. I'm a PhD candidate right now and from Winston-Salem, and my studies are in disability justice.
Right, Celine.
Morning, I'm Celine Johnson. I work alongside Miranda and other folks with Hate Out. And my work is in nonprofit with people with developmental disabilities and mental illness.
And yours truly, I'm Miranda Jones. I am one of the founding members of Hate Out of Winston. I'm a native of Winston-Salem, and I'm also an educator. I teach special education at North Forsythe High School. And Mayor Pro Tem, you want to tell us about yourself? And Zena as well?
What if I say no?
That's unacceptable.
I knew you'd say that. I'm D.D. Adams. I was born and raised here in Winston. I've been a political activist, advocate, hellraiser since as long as I can remember. One of my teachers in the second grade put all the dark-skinned kids over near the heat in the bathroom, and I don't know what came over me, but I told her, raised my hand. I said, I don't think you're supposed to be doing this. Next thing I know, they was taking me to the principal's office. So I've been this way all my life. I have just got reelected for my fourth term to the city council. And the council are the ones that elect the mayor pro tem. It's your peers that determine whether you should be, I guess, the second in command or whatever. And they unanimously voted for me, which I was surprised about that too. But I believe in what's right and what's just. But I also know, after working in the political, social activist arena for over 40-something years, that, like Miranda's heard me say, it's not Burger King. You're not gonna get what you want every time. But if you like onions, you need to work on your onions. If you like pickles, you need to work on your pickles. But we also need to understand that we get nowhere if we can't find a way to collaborate with one another, as well as respect and listen to one another. So again, I'm excited to work with you all. I'm excited to work with anybody. But just like you, I will be honest with you, and I will lend my counsel where needed. And I'm just glad to be on this call this morning.
Okay, and Zena, we don't want to forget about you.
Good afternoon.
That's not just my right hand, that's my left hand and my head.
It's a pleasure to be with you ladies today. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I will be taking some notes. However, I do know that Miranda does have a presentation today that we will follow. But it is indeed a pleasure to meet each of you. And for follow-up, if there's anything that I can do to assist you in communication with Mayor Pro Tem Adams, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you. So at this point, we'll jump right in. We have worked ardently on this presentation together as a collaborative group of women and individuals. And so our main goal is to get something for the people. We are striving to move from protest to policy. We want to see some changes that we believe are beneficial to the most marginalized and most oppressed groups in Winston-Salem. And so we have put together this slide that we want to present, as well as show to City Council and the people, so that the people understand very clearly and very succinctly what it is that we want. So Sina, if you will share, that would be great.
You're on mute, Zena.
They said that's the quote of 2020.
I know.
Yeah.
Do you have it now, guys?
You're on mute. You're on mute, or you need to unmute.
We don't see anything on our end just yet.
Okay, because I just saved, so, and shared. I had it all set up, so that's strange.
Did you click your share screen at the bottom?
Yeah, I sure did.
Do you guys want me to switch into my backup option?
If you have one, Brittany, and we'll see what's going on, because it does show the full PowerPoint. I have all 23 slides showing.
And now I have screen sharing capabilities on my end if you all want me to try as well. It's giving me that.
Yep, since I did try that.
It says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
I'll do it.
Okay. So if you would change the setting, I may be able to do it.
I will, definitely.
I got it up too.
Don't look for me to do none of that. Like I tell people, that's the good deal about having people that help you do stuff. Now, I do have all of the platforms, Zoom, Ring, Central, you name it, Team, I got it. But nah.
Did you change your settings? Because it's
I
still
sure did just now, and it's not actually, I can't see that I have it to put your name in. Because normally will it allow me to put your name in it or spotlight you?
If you go to share screen and click on that and then click on advanced options, it should give you the option to allow participants. But
And
you
when
don't have to put a name in, you can just select the little button that says allow participants to share screen.
you know, it won't even highlight now.
I can.
That was, do you have it?
All
Ms. Jones?
right.
Okay, Ms. Jones, you have it, great.
okay.
Like a very
Alex, put up.
smart, intelligent, strong women. We know how to make stuff go when it don't go. Okay, what's the next plan? Let's go.
Okay, Allie's pulling it up. Come on, Allie.
It's there. You can. It's not coming through for y'all.
Okay, I
I
see.
see it.
Yeah.
It's there.
So you won't see me, but that's all good. You don't need to see my mug. You'll hear my voice.
Okay, so the title of this presentation, this is the Forsyth County Police Accountability and Reallocation Coalition. So on this plan is Hate Out of Winston, Triad Abolition Project, North Carolina SPAN, and the Winston-Salem Democratic Socialists of America. And we are actually working with some of our other partners to get them to join in with us on this. All right, our demands are, we want money reallocated from the Winston-Salem Police Department budget to community services, including SOAR, youth bill. We want forgivable loans to Black businesses, public transportation, as well as an increase in the city's minimum wage. We are demanding that there be a civilian police oversight authority for Winston-Salem Police Department, as well as Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. We would like an end to the cash bail system in Forsyth County, demilitarization of the Winston-Salem Police Department and Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, and the creation of a mental health crisis intervention mobile unit. So those are our demands out front and clear.
May I just say something real quick? And Mayor Pro Tem, we recognize that some of these demands are not necessarily within your purview. They're within the purview of the Sheriff's Department or the DA's office, but we just show an overview of what we're working on.
But you know what, Brittany? I am so glad some of y'all are finally realizing that. People come to us all the time wanting us to stop evicting people and all of that. And we like, but that ain't what we do. Well, y'all need to fix the education system. That ain't what we do. You got defined lines of government. And we have to adhere to that. And anytime any of us start to roll over in each other's space, you can get in a lot of trouble with that. So again, thank y'all. And when you're presenting, I understand when you're presenting your demands or your wants or needs like other organizations, it's okay to put us all in the same, PowerPoint or presentation, but it's most helpful, like you just said, that or depict in your presentation, county, when you say this, city, when you say this, state, when you say this, Fed, when you say this, then people will also be educated as to what we do and what we don't do. Thank you.
All right.
Ready?
Yep. All right. So you all have heard us for a couple of months at City Council speaking so passionately about the reallocation of the $78 million from the Winston-Salem Police Department budget to community services. And so, Allie, we can't say anything.
You're not seeing.
Okay, now, thank you. Go back. All right, so now we can see, this is a graphic of where we kind of want, not kind of, where we want this funding to go. So I've kind of laid out the outline for, you know, to give you some idea of what we're thinking about. And we each are gonna kind of lean into what this looks like specifically and which governmental body does what, all right? Okay, so the first thing we wanted you all to know is that reallocation has taken place in other cities. So this would not be something new. The precedence has already been set for this. So right up the street in Asheville, reallocation has taken place. Places like Hartford, Connecticut, Norman, Oklahoma, Salt Lake City, Newark, New Jersey, Oakland, California, where our dear Allie is from, Baltimore, Portland, Oregon, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Washington, San Francisco, Austin, Texas, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and New York. And so you see some of the numbers by way of their population. And so our argument really is, if they can make some of the cuts that you see on the far right, then certainly a city of our size can do similarly. Does anybody want to add anything there before we move on? I don't want to do all the talking. Okay.
Bailey, is this a good time for you to speak about budget here in Winston?
Right. So I just wanted to kind of give us a brief overview of what we're looking at in the WSPD budget section of the general fund. We do know it's 78 million for this year, and the budget cycle is coming up the beginning of 2021. As we were looking at the budget for WSPD, we also really looked at personnel taking up 83% of the 78 million. So personnel costs 63 million. One of our goals is to decrease the size of personnel, as that would then decrease that number of the 63 million. So that's one thing that we're really looking at as we move forward. We're also looking at how the police budget has actually been increasing as the general fund has been decreasing at the same time. So we're also hoping that that could come to an end as we're looking at reallocation strategies. And as we move forward, we are looking into making a people's budget, which we would love to present. So as the budget cycle is underway, we'll have more information from that as well.
I just want to jump in quickly because I know for us, sometimes when we hear the idea to decrease the size of a police force, it can seem scary, like we're not going to have the presence to keep the city safe. But there's lots of literature, and we can share those things with you as well, about studies that have demonstrated that increased numbers of police do not deter crime. It's more about the staffing practices of the police department, how police are dispersed throughout the city when their shifts are. And so we are definitely wanting to keep the city safe, including, we all live in Winston-Salem. And so we just think that's important to highlight as well.
Beautiful. Okay.
All right. So Mayor Pro Tem, before I give the mic to Allie, SOAR and Youth Bill are dear to my heart as an educator, especially because when I look at the dropout rates, those rates include students that I've taught, which were largely young African-American males and some Latinx males. And when I had to, counsel and work with these students during a conference, I saw dropout on the horizon. And I knew as an educator that there was really nothing that I could do about it. I could refer the students to student services, which we formerly call guidance. I could try to create some kind of wraparound services, but I could not compete, and the school system could not compete with some of the things that they were dealing with at home and their families, like financing, housing, food deficits, some of these kind of other issues of disparity. And so I said, okay, what else can we do? And so I reached out to Youth Bill by way of email, and I never really heard back. And so it saddened me to see some of my young brothers end up dropping out and kind of falling into a life of crime, because the reality is they had to make money. Some of them had to take care of their families, and some of them also had children or children on the way. And so I began to present Youth Bill to Hate Out as something that is an achievable goal. It's a national program. It has metrics. And so for me, this is really very personal, because I feel like this can prevent a lot of crime. This can keep a lot of these young folks from doing things out of desperation. So I felt like we needed to dig into this. We needed to lift this program back up. We need to get it reignited. And of course, I'd heard about SOAR through the work of James Taylor. And I said to myself, for students who unfortunately fell into a life of crime and were convicted, what kind of supports are out there when they get out? And even for some of my classmates who, I hear their stories about, it is very, very hard for them not to fall back into a life of crime. Some have said, all it takes is a phone call. All it takes is a phone call and I'm back in and I have money. And, and I don't feel like I have to beg, or I don't have to, my pride is not on the line. So these were some things that I feel like we can do well, but they definitely need more funding in order to do more and to reach more people, especially with our numbers of poverty in our city. So Allie, I'm gonna let you take it away, because you've been doing a lot of research and digging on this.
Thanks, Miranda, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for your time this morning. We greatly appreciate it. And so, as a former educator from, Miranda mentioned, Oakland, working with a lot of high risk and at need youth who are in pretty similar situations to the youngsters in Winston who are having a hard time, having alternatives to college and to even making it through high school are critical for the progress of a city and the success of students, particularly students of color, who are being hardest hit by the dropout rate. Youth Build is a national program that was formerly funded for the city of Winston through a grant from the Department of Labor in 2012. Unfortunately, in 2015, we lost that grant because our dropout rate has declined, which sounds wonderful on the surface, except that after 2015, our dropout rate then started to climb again. And so what you have is, you can see on the PowerPoint, we had 557 students drop out last year alone. And since we've lost these funds, we've had slightly over 2,800 students drop out, or sorry, 2,300 students drop out. And Youth Build, although wonderful, is at a very restricted capacity right now. And they work to supply partnerships with students doing construction work. And the beautiful part about Youth Build is that it was conceived to help feedback into the community two ways. So primarily it's giving young people ages 18 to 24, first, their education. They need to complete either GED, or if they are able to, finish their high school diploma, which they do via assistance with Youth Build and a partnership with Forsythe. Then they are able to go into job training. Youth Build themselves provide construction training, and then they also partner with Forsythe to help students who aren't filling construction really find other pathways that are viable job creating degrees or certifications. And so you're looking at things like medical billing and coding, welding. They've even partnered with Second Harvest Food Bank for culinary arts. And so this is wonderful, except that when we were operating under the Department of Labor grant, they were serving 30 students a year, 30 students a year, 20 students a year, each receiving one full year of follow-up support services. And now, since losing that DOL grant, Youth Build has been able to serve a total of 9 students, 6 of whom made it through the program. They rely heavily on a wait list with Next Gen and the Goodwill program, but they are certainly not serving anywhere near the number of young people that they ought to be serving in our community. So increased funding for them it would be wonderful to see them get anywhere between $1 million and $1.5 million, since that is what would replace the DOL grant. And it would allow them to hire a new construction trainer with a competitive salary, so that we get somebody who is not only an expert in their field, but able and willing to work with young people that need some extra time and attention, as well as a case manager, because as Miranda mentioned, there are many barriers. And as I'm sure you know, having grown up in Winston, there are many barriers for students that are having a hard time, particularly economically disadvantaged students, to be able to make it even to youth build. They may need childcare, they may need some support with transportation, they might need some help with food access still. And so while youth build also is paying them a stipend, this case manager role was very critical in assisting students break down the barriers to allow success in the program. That is something that Ms. Bartlett and Mr. Sneed, the director and program assistant for Youth Build, have let me know. I piggyback it with SOAR, because SOAR is, as Miranda said, what you need if for some reason you do slip through those cracks and you do end up incarcerated in Winston-Salem. These are not county programs, they are Winston programs, or city programs. And SOAR is a really magnificent opportunity, because 40% of North Carolinian prisoners who are released end up back in prison within 3 years of their release. That is an extraordinarily high recidivism rate. It's very close to the national average of 44%. And many of the times people end up returning to crime, not only because it's easy money or what they know, but there are also obstacles of having a record and not having had the time to get education and training while you were serving your time. So SOAR provides such a necessary service, and it costs about $7,000 participant. I want to wrap this up pretty tight. But they're also only serving 8 people a year. SOAR cycles are 6 months long. Youth Build cycles are 6 months long. If both programs had sufficient funding, and again, about $1.5 million for SOAR as well, you would actually have the staff and the capacity to run both programs concurrently year round, doubling the number of people you're able to serve in each program. And then the last big point that is really critical with SOAR and their need for funding is the city gets a major bonus with the existence of SOAR, which is that the jobs many SOAR participants do are city jobs that departments need done but cannot afford to open the permanent positions for. And so you have SOAR participants coming in to fill these roles, keep the city clean, keep the city smoothly running, keep things being delivered and such, and for far less money than it would cost for permanent employees. The only last hindrance is increased funding would allow for more permanent skills and takeaways for participants, such as licensures, trucking certificates, paying off any of their debts that were incurred, say, while they were facing trial, like boots or tickets, and helping them start their life after SOAR with a clean slate, a clean step forward, prepared for making that transition to their next step. They are 2 programs that do an amazing job serving our city. The Ms. Bartlett and Mr. Sneed are incredible, and they work their rears off for their participants, and it would be lovely to be able to give them what they deserve to help really transform what is possible for our neediest citizens.
Any questions on that so far? Anybody, Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't know whether I need to do my whatever now or wait until the end. What do you think? Because I'm hearing things that I feel like I need to say something. What do you think?
Can we get through the presentation and then you can do it at the end?
That'll work. That'll work.
All right. So this next slide, Allie, if you'll keep us going, so we stay on, point with time. I was talking to Sister Britt about the Civilian Police Oversight Authority. And I mentioned that there is already what's called a Citizens Police Review Board. And we had some questions about this, this review board and kind of what it does. And we challenge whether it's adequate. We understand that they meet quarterly every Thursday, the third Thursday of each month, but we don't know if there's been any measurable outcomes. We don't know if it's really beneficial to the people. And so one of our demands would be looking at the formulation of the Civilian Police Oversight Authority for the police department, as well as the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. And of course, we know that some of this was maybe within the purview of the city, but some of it is not. So I'll turn this over to Britt and let her kind of take it away from there.
You're on mute, Brittany.
Thank you. Okay, so what I said, I wasn't going to read through all these impediments on this slide. You can read through them later. This information comes from the ACLU, the Connecticut ACLU, who has done some work looking at the efficacy of community review boards. And so they're often something that can do a really great job, but they're often very symbolic, that they don't necessarily have the teeth or the power to do something that would really be beneficial to the city. So these impediments, the one thing that's super important is what I said, excuse me, that there's often very close ties between police review boards and police departments or DA's offices. And that creates a huge issue when we look at something like what's known in criminology as the concept of procedural justice, which is how citizens perceive fairness when it comes to court processes or any findings of that deal with resolving disputes or allocating resources. And so procedural justice really asks us to make sure that citizens have a voice, so they have an opportunity to tell their story, that the processes that they're involved in are transparent, and that there's actually trust demonstrated, that there's respect shown to the citizens, and also that there's neutrality. And so the neutrality and the transparency part are what is often missing in the community police review boards. And so that's something that we think can definitely be addressed if we have this independent and well-resourced authority that builds on what the city has already done. Ali, can you go to the next slide? Okay. So to be effective, this again comes from the ACLU. They're saying that community review boards have to have those 6 things. One of the things that I want to highlight is that there's a broad scope of investigation. So it's not just when violence is done to an individual, it's also when they feel like they had an interaction with a police officer that was disrespectful, that was not professional, that was not within the scope of how they should be interacted with as citizens. Also that the review board has actually meaningful disciplinary power, that there is actually measurable outcomes, that the citizens can know what's happening based on the recommendations of the review board. And also, as I said, the transparency, the independence important, and then a budget is always important. Ali, can you go to the next slide? And so here in Winston, one of the difficulties, oh, sorry. Okay, now I have to minimize here so I can actually see my notes, because now the screen's
working now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. So in Winston, one of the significant issues with the police review board here is that the final decisions are made by our city manager, Lee Garrity. And we know that Lee Garrity has close relationships with the police department. His son-in-law is a police officer, and his daughter works for the Forsyth County DA's office. And so that's definitely not an independent or an unbiased or a neutral individual who makes the final disciplinary decisions about what happens with police officers when someone does appeal to the police review board. And just quickly, you know, in Winston, when a citizen files a complaint, first it goes to the chief. And then if the chief makes a decision and that citizen wants to appeal, it's at that time that it actually goes to the Citizens Police Review Board, according to what the information that's provided on the website. And then once that appeal process happens, then again, like I said, the final decisions are made by Lee Garrity, which, you know, is not a strong way to demonstrate transparency and to really meet these criteria of procedural justice. And so if we can go to the next slide. So our request around—
I don't see anything.
You can't see anything, Zena.
All I see is a gray whatever.
Same here.
Zena. Are you on mute? I don't even see all of you anymore. Hello?
I can see everyone.
I
Alex,
hear
can
you.
you pull it back up if you can?
Yeah, do you see it? I have it back up.
Yeah,
Is it
just
not showing up?
Go back up a slide
Oh,
to the Winston-Salem Citizens Police review
Yes.
slide.
no, the next slide.
this
Ally.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Next slide. Mayor Pro Tem, can you see that slide on Ally's screen?
I don't see anything. I see Brittany down in the corner. That's it.
Okay.
Zena,
If you
Hello?
hit stop sharing screen, hopefully.
Can y'all
all
see?
right.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, guys, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was trying to make sure that you all were seeing. I was trying to figure out, I heard you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was trying to figure out what was going on with the screens, why you weren't seeing anything.
Okay, how do we make this the slides where you can read the whole slide?
This is Miranda now.
There you go. Stop.
Can y'all see mine?
Yeah, everybody.
So now just go to that next
So
slide.
Miranda, you have access now?
Yes, I think so. But y'all let me know. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, because I didn't do anything different. I was just trying to make sure, see what was going on with the gray screen.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
gonna put the next screen, Britt.
Okay, thank you. So our demand around the authority, the Civilian Police Oversight Authority, is based on guidances from Fayetteville PACT, who's the Police Accountability Coalition, and also the guidance of the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, that does a lot of work about how to make sure that these types of community review boards are really effective in doing the job. So in more than 200 cities, they've created these independent oversight bodies, and the most effective boards have access and the authority and the power to have an influence in hiring practices, in pay, in training, in the ways that police officers are trained against using demeaning or disrespectful language that is so often happening with police encounters, particularly with Black and brown people and with poor people and with queer people. Making sure they're adhering to their body cam policy, dealing with the issues of excessive force, and then really having an independent investigation of misconduct allegations, that the final decision is not made by someone who has direct relationships with the police department or direct relationships with city council, because the procedural justice really requires that we have that transparency, that neutrality, and that trust built.
And so I want to jump in here and talk about cash bail, Mayor Pro Tem, because I've been doing a lot of research, as well as the team has been doing a lot of research, and we've been learning a whole lot about this. And hopefully, even if this isn't in your purview, you can use your position to help kind of push this, because I think this will directly address poverty, marginalization, oppression, and even the situation with COVID in our jails. And so one of the key quotes that we want to lean into is, there's no evidence you need money to get people back to court. It's irrational, ineffective, unsafe, and profoundly unfair. And that came from DC Superior Court Judge Truman Morrison. And so in my research, what I found is that people actually do come back to court, and you don't need to have money to ensure that they return. And so in this idea of bail, really for folks who are already struggling, is absolutely insane. One of the things that I found that touched me was that Sandra Bland was in jail because she could not afford the bail of $515. And so I asked myself, what would that have meant for her if she had $515? To some people, that's an astronomical amount of money. It may not be for others, but we look at the police stop and kind of what happened with her. I imagine that happens to other people. And so that's one of the things that we really, really, really want to lean into, because with some of our partner groups, we found that some people don't have the $100, and some people don't have, $200 to just give up. And even though there are these premium payment plans, they don't have the resources, they don't have the money, and they're having to sell precious items just to come up with it. And so it's this kind of endless cycle of debt, right? So what we know is 3 out of 5 people in US jails today have not been convicted of a crime. So I even asked myself, is this constitutional to have someone locked up and they haven't been convicted? The court determines an amount of money that a person has to pay for their release. But again, the question is, what if that person doesn't have that money, and how does the court reach this number? And is bias kind of inherently built into this system, and who profits the most from this? And so what we found is 433%. That is the increase in the use of pretrial detention between 1970 and 2015. All right, so what we know from our research is that cash bail is just inherently violent, right? So it criminalizes poverty. That's the first thing that we want to lean into. It disproportionately affects Black and brown folks. It perpetuates a vicious cycle of arrest and incarceration, and it robs folks of housing, jobs, and maybe even their children. And as an educator, you know, this is near and dear to my heart when I have students whose parents are locked up and they cannot make bail. These children are not allowed to be with their parent, and the parent is not allowed to be there to kind of provide that safety and security for that child, which, you know, is kind of this endless cycle that not only affects the adult, but it affects the child, which I would argue later affects our society, particularly our city. And when these folks are in jail, you know, there's so much evidence and so many different stories and testimonies coming out about the exposure to COVID and the lack of safety measures that it makes me concerned about my students, my families, my people in general. And we know that these individuals do not pose a threat to public safety. So we want to end this narrative that we're wanting people who are murderers and child molesters and who do all kind of nefarious things just to be walking the streets. The research suggests that that is not what's happening here. And so we're moving to kind of end this system if we want to kind of change our society. So that's just a brief overview. I'll lean back into either Bailey or Britt for the demilitarization piece.
Yes, I'll speak on the demilitarization piece, so we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So in looking at demilitarization and looking specifically at the Winston-Salem budget for WSPD, we're really looking at kind of what City Council has the ability to vote on. And so something that happened recently was voting for the JAG grant, which came with the Real-Time Crime Center that's shared with FCSO. So studies have shown, and these are from ACLU, that surveillance equipment is a form of militarization. Surveillance really began booming in the US right after 9/11. So it was really meant to protect the US from terrorism. However, now we're seeing more communities with more surveillance within city limits and within the county. So kind of like tactics of surveillance creates fear in the community rather than protecting them. And a lot of the language of the surveillance equipment when it's purchased or gone on trials, such as Fusus technology, which is what our city and county are starting off with as a security camera pilot program. The language of it is really emphasizing a protection of the police officers rather than a protection of the community. And this is kind of looking at how our tax dollars are working. We have kind of found out that through the WSPD presentations recently that 29% of city employees are with WSPD. So kind of, again, reemphasizing reducing the size of personnel so that this money is being reallocated to community resources rather than just WSPD. So if we could go to the next slide.
Sure.
Thank you. And then further militarization equipment that we've kind of done more research on. Some of this isn't really within the city limits, but we want to also share, like, this is something we're looking at. So for example, there was a coronavirus relief fund that came into the WSPD in May, and it was a little over $500,000. And this included industrial grade pepper spray dispensers to protect WSPD from civil disobedience. So we're looking at this as also a method of militarization that isn't really protecting the community, but is creating more intimidation. So this is another aspect of how we're going to have to reach beyond city council, but also ask for City Council to use more discretion when voting for things such as the JAG grant or things that are involved with both FCSO and WSPD, because we're also looking at task forces that share equipment across both county and city. We could go to the next slide.
Okay.
Thanks. And kind of to summarize a lot of the research we've gone over with militarization and surveillance, what we've found is that neighborhoods are not war zones. The police should not be treating us like wartime enemies. Federal grant and equipment programs for policing are often designed in ways that incentivize harmful policing and undermine local and state political accountability. And we're often focused on an effective policing rather than ensuring that policing is fair, minimally harmful, or consistent with the law. The use of hyper-aggressive tools and tactics results in tragedy for civilians and police officers, escalates the risk of needless violence, destroys property, and undermines individual liberties. And lastly, aggressive police tactics disproportionately target communities of color and weaken the public's perception of the police.
Okay. This next piece, I'm going to, have Celine come in and talk about it. She's been doing a lot of research around what's been going on in Guilford County. This is definitely within her professional purview. She has a lot of information on it. So Celine, if you want to jump in and kind of talk to us, the Mayor Pro Tem, about this creation of a mental health crisis intervention mobile unit.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to, again, we've been talking about sort of the purview of the city versus, other funding sources and so forth. And I want to make it clear that we're not talking about the city funding mental health treatment, but we're talking about response to 911 calls that have a mental health component where police officers are typically the ones responding. There was a study that was published in 2016 that found that 20 to 50% of fatal encounters with law enforcement involve an individual with mental illness. And so, I did speak briefly at a city council meeting about what's happening in Greensboro. They have put about $500,000 in their police budget, specifically towards providing counselors to respond to 911 calls that involve a mental health component. But I also want to talk about a couple of other cities and what they've been doing. Minneapolis has actually already done that, where they've, since 2017, they have sent a counselor along with the police officers to respond to those calls. And Minneapolis is actually now looking into starting a program that's along the lines of a program that's been going on in Eugene, Oregon for about 30 years that's called Cahoots. So what they found in Minneapolis is that when a police officer is going along with the counselor, it's still sort of escalating because an armed police officer creates a potential, threat to the person. And so I'm going to talk about what's going on in Eugene. Again, for 30 years, they've been doing this program called Cahoots, and it stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. And what they do is they actually send a two-person team. One person is a crisis worker who has substantial training in mental health, and the other is a medic, either a nurse, a paramedic, or an EMT. This program is funded by the city of Eugene, which is only slightly smaller than the city of Winston-Salem. And what they have found is that this program, while it costs about $2.1 million annually, it actually saves the city on average for the past, since 2014, it saves about $8.5 million in public safety spending. So it's not only good because it helps our citizens stay safer, but it's also good because it helps our budget. So for example, last year, out of about 24,000 calls to Cahoots, only 150 of those required backup from police. That's less than 1% of those calls. So it significantly reduces the need for police officers to come in and potentially create that extra threat, in addition to the extra cost. So they train their 911 dispatchers to know when the call should be routed to Cahoots versus being routed to the police. And they send those folks in. They have a great deal of mental health related experience, and they handle things like conflict resolution, welfare checks, substance abuse, suicide threats, all kinds of things that police officers really are responding to currently in Winston-Salem, but they're not really trained, nor should it really be within their scope. So I will leave you with, and there's actually a graph showing that cost savings in millions for the city of Eugene, Oregon. But what I'll leave you with is that the program that runs Cahoots actually provides consulting and strategic guidance to communities across the nation that are seeking to replicate their model. So I would be happy to reach out and find out more about what that guidance looks like. But I think that would be a wonderful first step, would be for the city to look into what kinds of programs we could invest in that would create this kind of meaningful change for our citizens who have mental health, substance use disorder, and developmental disabilities.
And lastly, Mayor Pro Tem, we want to leave you with a quote from Police Chief Katrina Thompson, because it's apropos to this work we're doing. She said, "We're expected to be everything: teachers, babysitters, healthcare workers, mental health providers. Oh, and by the way, handling crime as well. I'd be happy to reallocate our funding into these programs or into those people or organizations that can provide those things." This was a statement directly from her on the Town Trust Talk on June 16th. So that pretty much sums up the work that we're doing and why we feel so ardently about it. Her statement in and of itself actually promotes what we're talking about. So I'm going to open the floor to you to ask us any questions. And
I just want to say one thing, just to give one additional piece of context about what WSPD is actually doing. So of over 200,000 dispatch calls to 911, only 6% of those calls were actually for what are known as Part 1 crimes. So they're the most serious offenses: murder, rape, aggravated assault, motor vehicle theft, arson. Only 6%. So there's a vast majority of time the police are responding to things that don't necessarily need to be responded to with guns and the potential threat of violence.
okay, Mayor Pro Tem, it's all yours now.
Again, thank each and every one of you. I can tell you put a lot of work in this, and you've been doing this for a while, and that's great. And I can see some improvement in your request, which is quite helpful. The one thing that I always tell people, and Miranda's heard me say this, and Zena, you can ask for anything, and you can continue to ask for anything. And you all have begun to deep dive your ask. But you also got to put together, where is the money going to come from? What areas you want us to cut? Because we're elected officials, and I know y'all don't like hearing it, but we respond to 250,000 people. And the 250,000 people, when we have budget cycle season, and we have all these workshops where people can go and give their, 2 cents of how they think we need to reallocate the money, 99% of the people don't even show up. So this year, we're coming into June, April or May of next year, next 3 months budget cycle for 21-22, I'm expecting to see a whole lot of people make their requests. When you say that, you said that we only answer 6% type 1 crimes. You gotta look, when we look at data, the city, we have to look at the big picture. We just can't zero in on one piece and say, well, we only really, the amount of the real critical crime, we only answer 6%. When I got on the council in 2009, I asked for the same information people are asking for, even you now. I wanted to find a way to try to find money for certain things in my community. I began to look at our calls of public safety, not just police, fire too. Most of the calls that we answer are for the county. Your EMTs, your county commissioners and them are supposed to be running that deal. When we tried to cut the money or change our perspective, the police department, to go do policing and fire, go do fire, you'd be surprised how much pushback we got from not just other council members, staff, and the city. What are y'all doing? When my grandma called the police and she having a panic attack, y'all need to show up. So then you put in the mindset of the city, we have to answer every call. When people call 911, the police and the fire go first. They're there before the EMTs get here. And you need to figure out how you gonna communicate. See, it's the communicate, educate piece. How you gonna get people to go along with that? If we can prove, the data's out there, that most of all the calls we answer are for people with, I guess, in their mind, life-threatening issues. Whether grandma fell and can't get up. Yes, whether their cat fell down a drain and can't get out. People expect us to show up as the cavalry. Again, I'm just giving y'all pointers to take you to another level that you need to think this thing through some more. You're headed in the right direction. But when you start to ask for things to be cut, you now got to figure out where is that money going to be cut from and what am I willing to give up to get that money? And you also always have to consider you and I are part of the bigger equation of 250,000+ people. The bigger picture will always prevail, especially when it comes to safety and impact on quality of life. You need to also start, just like you're lobbying us. This is what I found out over the decades that I've been doing everything that I do. People stop at the city council. They come to the city council and they stop. Everybody wants us to do something, but nobody thinks that the county is the real, they got more power and more money than all of us. Winston-Salem is the county seat. We have the largest population, but they treat us like stepchildren. Did you all know they got a whole bunch of money right now? And they are deciding how to spend that money. And it's not on none of this that y'all talking about.
We show up to every county commissioner meeting as well. And so I definitely hear you about, we can't stop at city council, but we have been lobbying the DA's office, the district court judges, the sheriff's office, the county commissioners, and the city council and the mayor since the summer. So we definitely are already on board with doing that work.
And Mayor,
but
add something.
They got money, y'all. They got a whole lot of money. What, Miranda?
I wanted to add something because I think this is a point that folks don't really lean into that we need to.
Okay.
Because you've been arguing about reparations this past summer. One of the things when people start talking about the 250,000, we are not looking at the fact that what we're proposing affects largely Black and brown people. And I will speak specifically for my group. We're talking about a people that are disempowered. And so, these are going to be the people on the margins who are struggling with poverty and a myriad of other issues. To ask them to come challenge city council, the county, the sheriff's office is a really, really big ask. So really, we understand that at the root of this, we're challenging white supremacy, and we're challenging a system that is hell bent on not giving anything to the people. So I don't expect for people in some of the wards that are struggling the most to be able to show up and make the demands and make the presentation. So I feel like sometimes that's an unfair ask. I think it's a valid point, but it's asking a whole lot of people who are just, trying to survive. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So I think, more than anything, when we talk about poverty, we talk about what we want to do for crime. I don't think it's extraordinary to say take some of this money and move it away from the police department into some of these things that really help the people, so we don't have to keep having the poverty task force and this task force and this committee and this group. So I just want to throw that out there.
And Miranda, I don't disagree with none of that. And you know that. Y'all know that.
Ma'am.
I am one person just like y'all are. one person army fighting a goddamn, what is that, a platoon regiment, whatever you call it.
White supremacy.
We all in agreement here, but I want you all to be able, whatever I can give you, to be able to present your best case scenario. Like, for instance, the PowerPoint, the slide you showed where you'd like to see some money go. Okay, put a dollar figure with it. If you're doing your research, that's like telling me to go out and buy a fifth of Grey Goose at a package store versus the ABC store. The package store is cheaper in Baltimore because there's so many of them. But at least I know how much money I gotta have to go get my Grey Goose. I need you all in business, you are in the city, you always gotta put a number on it. Because now that's where we're gonna be working from. May find out that's not enough, but that's what we need to do.
That's specifically why, you know, the number for SOAR and the number I came up with for Youth Build, those aren't, you know, that's something that when we have more time to get into depth, those aren't numbers I just like came up with off the top of my head. SOAR, it costs about a little over $7,000 per participant. Last year, they had 128 people that they could have served. And so if we gave them the money to serve everybody they could, it gets up into the 900,000s. And then you also need to consider that they would need additional staff to be able to support that dramatic increase in the number of participants. And then similarly with Youth Build, they were operating off a $1 million grant from the Department of Labor that allowed them to function the way they were. And so, you know, I'm not gonna lie, we always ask for that little extra because you don't get what you ask for. You never get everything you ask for.
And these grants and things, whether it's SOAR, whether it's these are grants and money the government gives us. And you got rules. If you don't, y'all know, if you don't apply that grant to this, because when we first got Youth Bill in 2012, it was James and Derwin and I fighting to get it through our federal lobbyists in DC. City had never applied for it. Okay, we got it. But they made it clear to us that this is just you know, this might be a one-time deal. So you need to try to get your program up and running and also put some money in. Okay, we did that. But right now, even Youth Bill at the federal level that we have asked to get, we have asked for money every year I've been on the council. Youth Bill is one of those goose that laid the golden egg. Everybody's not gonna get Youth Bill. You're right, cities have to put money into it.
That's exactly the thing is because, you know, we're trying to walk this line with the Department of Labor about our graduation rate. One of the things that I was talking with Faith about is you don't want the biggest push for the city to put their money into it rather than consistently crossing our fingers and hoping that we qualify for this DOL grant is that it creates an unstable program. It doesn't allow for consistent support. It doesn't allow for consistent staffing. And then you're not going to have the same quality of, particularly they're really struggling to find a good construction trainer. That's what
I understand.
So that's what I'm saying is,
even when we talk about bringing on added people, whether it's for mental health, bringing on added people to train, consult, whatever, you're talking employee, you're talking benefits, you're talking serious add-ons that have to be added because that's the way it is.
That's why I'm saying, already, though.
I know you, what?
That's a position that exists already. It's a position they're just having a challenge filling. That position of construction trainer is the lead educator for Youth Build. The problem is that they offer a $41,000 temporary contract every year, whereas if you are a construction manager in the city of Winston-Salem, you can make anywhere from $69,000 to $90,000 a year. So part of why I'm saying, you know, Youth Build needs this $1 million is not just to support the youth themselves and their salaries, but to get someone in there working with them who knows what they're doing and will stick around. Because I'm sure you know, D.D, consistency is key with these programs.
And it's got not 10% of the 78 million, Mayor Pro Tem. That's right. Nowhere near.
I'm not your enemy.
No, for
I'm
sure.
your cheerleader. I'm just trying to help you understand from my perspective, just like me, their expectations of me.
Right.
I need you all to understand, again, you need to put a money figure with these asks. Because all you doing to me, and I'm being real, is I see presentations all the time, even in my corporate life. And if you put a presentation up to a CEO or whoever with no numbers, data beside it, numbers, They would look at you like,
how much, can you add that up real quick and come up with the number for what we're asking for those two programs alone? And Celine,
and you need to prioritize which ones you're gonna be, how you gonna prioritize. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that is. If you're going with the SOAR bill, youth bill and SOAR is number 1. If you're going with the mental health personnel, number 2, you need to organize it and prioritize it in that manner. Again, people come to us with ask, and it might be 3 or 4, and they never really prioritize, well, if you can get this one, which one would you want first?
Well, some of these acts don't require money. So demilitarizing the Winston-Salem Police Department does not require money. There's no budget associated with that.
I want to ask.
But Brittany, it may be no budgetary allotment added to it, but yes, it is in a way indirectly. Again, you still have to prioritize what you want. Because when you start talking about demilitarizing the police, you added in a slide, you put down the vest, the gloves, the whatever, the mace, whatever, the foggers. What the hell? Excuse me, I got something. Anyway, my hands is red.
I'm like, what is she doing?
I'm looking at my red hand and at my fingers, and don't get me wrong, lupus does that. Anyway.
You mad with us, protein?
Y'all got blood boiling.
But we have a number for you, and the first thing we want is this mental health. That's 2.1 million right there. That's right around
we working right now to benchmark Greensboro. I think their staff has been with us or something. It's a back and forth thing that they're helping us understand how you do that. No problem with that.
Well, how long? What's the timeline on that? And does it have to go to committee?
Oh, hell yeah. Everything got to go to committee. Everything.
What can we do to get that there? Like expediently?
Well, you're going to be, I guess, assuming you're going to be meeting with Councilmember Taylor's committee in January. Is that not correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's your showtime. That's showtime at the Apollo. That's when you bring it. That's when your presentation is succinct and tight and you get to the chase.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem,
you have X amount of dollars in the police budget. We're asking for these things to be funded and the money be reallocated from the police budget and any other areas you can find money from.
So what can you as Mayor Pro Tem help us push through? We already know mental health is number 1. We already know that. Ma'am,
I'm with you on mental health.
That right there, we feel confident that can be pushed through. SOAR, we already have it. It's just a matter of putting the funding. Allie, what was that number? Was it 1 million or did we say 3?
My concern with SOAR and you, Bill, because I'm a data detail person. Mm-hmm. I'm into accountability and transparency. Mm-hmm. And if you got, I don't sit in on every public safety meeting. But you would think that because they're dealing with community money, that SOAR and youth bill would also have to come through my committee, General Government, Community Development and Housing.
And when do y'all meet? Because when do we need to be there?
All of us meet the first and second Mondays of the month. First and second Mondays and Tuesdays of the month. And I will follow up on that this morning because I just need you guys to land on 3 things right now, or 2. Like when I wrote down that you were talking about one of the things that you can go after, no money. That Citizens Police Review Board, I was a part of that organization back in the early 1980s. Winston-Salem was, if not the first city to have a Citizens Police Review Board. That was brought about by Black folk in this city where a Black man or Black people were being killed and shot in our communities in front of us. That's a historical thing for me. I understand you wanting more oversight. My thing is, why don't you go and try to get that right? Instead of creating another group.
No, that's why I said specifically build on what is already there, but they need to have particular powers. It can't
got that. Yeah, I'm telling you, got that. But you got to remember when we started this, Rev Mendez and Ballard and all of us and Walt Marshall and Earlene and them, back in 1982, we met every Tuesday night for 2 years, at Emmanuel, my church, to get this done. It wasn't perfect. And it wasn't all that, but we were proud that we got that done. The work you're doing now, we did then. All I'm saying is go work on that. If you're not comfortable with the way this, and I'm not either, trust me, this is not what we saw this to be. You can empower this group to be the group. Put the right people, make the mayor appoint the right people, not people who just putting it there to be on a freaking resume. People that don't show up at meetings.
Right, but it's not even about who is on there. If they don't have the authority or the power from the city council, they cannot do anything. Regardless, I can on there and talk all I wanted, but if I don't have, if it's going to legality, who to make the final decision, it doesn't matter what those people say.
But Brittany, that goes back to you formulating your own process. You got the actual process that it is right now. Go figure out what the process should be. The process flow. Who should really be the ones that have to, because somebody's got to be in charge of it. The city just can't create an oversight committee in the county either. And there is not a connected path back to a committee or a person within the structure. That's government. That's just the way it is. I'm saying that you guys can rework it, tweak it. That I don't have a problem with the people on it, but if you don't have an actual passion to speak up when it's wrong, to go to the mayor or the council and you're on the committee and say, you know what, y'all need to relook at this because this is not nothing. Again, it goes back to how you know, bought in other people that sit on these committees, whether the city or the county. I say work on that and educate the public on the history of it. Go talk to Rev Mendez or Willa Bass or somebody and get their spin on how we can make this better in the time. It was never meant to stay the way it was when it was created. That's one of those organizations that has to change with the times. It has to be given more power. It has to be more citizen driven. I got that. I say that's one of the ones you can work on and really cut some teeth. Cash bail has been a part of our advocacy tools that we use every year. We just send our advocacy goals to the North Carolina League of Municipalities. We'll be voting on those that go to the State House. Every city in North Carolina has to do that, every city in the country. Then we also have to vote on our goals for the federal level. Your senators, your Congress people do represent you. Cash bail, along with payday loans, have always been in that we think it needs to go away. But this is what I also need you all to think about as you go forward. You guys need to be, and maybe you are, I am the person that the council looks to be the federal lobbyist for the city of Winston-Salem. I'm the one that actively communicates with our lobbyists daily in DC. Jeff McIntosh is the council member that is in contact with our state lobbyists. We have federal lobbyists and we have a state lobbyists. And you cannot be a city of our size and not have that, because we don't have people in DC and Raleigh every day that can tell us what's going on every minute. We're getting ready to vote on our goals for the feds. And again, I will be happy to make sure that it's in our, from Winston-Salem, that it's in our goals going forward. Now, what they do is at the state and the federal, they look at the goals and they say, throw this one out, throw that one out, throw that. We don't want to do that. But if you all would go ahead and use your power that you now have to start educating people as well as your organization to make sure you're emailing Burr and Tillis and Fox and Donnie Lambert, Crowrick, Paul, and all of them down in Raleigh, like we have to do, to tell them what we want. I would hope and expect you all are at that point now.
We definitely are. We collaborate with North Carolina State Police Accountability Coalition and Emancipate NC and the ACLU of North Carolina. We work very closely with all of those organizations.
I can appreciate that, but are you in touch with your elected officials?
All summer we have been. Trust me, we will forward you the emails that we have sent. Oh, most certainly.
I have no issue with, again, the mental health issue. I have no issue with the police review board, and I have no issue with advocating and pushing for legislation on the cash bail or any housing evictions. Again, these are the things that go on behind the scenes that nobody knows, that every day or every other day, I am in direct contact with our lobbyists and Burr and Tillis and Fox, and trying to get them to understand what they need to be doing as our elected officials. Just as hard for me as it just as hard for you with me or the council. They don't listen. Even though we write emails and we call in their offices and our lobbyists are there in their faces, they don't listen. The money that's coming down that got voted on last night, cities and towns got none of that. And we've been lobbying harder than everybody. Because what's gonna happen, and I hope you guys are on top of this, that $908 billion is just a drop in the bucket. Cities and towns not getting any money to help replace the revenues that we're not getting so we can have a decent budget next year means that we're now going to have to make some very tough cuts. Tough. Whether it's laying people off, whether it's furloughs, whether it's cutting services, whether it's you thinking your trash 7 day a week, we got to go to 14 or 16 days a week. We may have to lay off firemen and police, city workers, water people. Your mains break when it get cold like it's getting ready to get, and that might not get fixed for a while. So that's why I'm saying, if the money that everybody, the $600 stimulus and all of that, unemployment is great, but they gave your cities and towns no money. No money. So even the nonprofits and groups, and even if we want to throw $1 million somewhere to put it somewhere, we getting down to the real nitty gritty in the next 2 months, y'all. Whereas folks ain't gonna be happy. Again, I need you to identify your 1, 2, 3 and put a dollar figure to it. That's what I'm advising you to do. You can do it any way you want, but I'm telling you, the line is going to be long come March, April for groups and people wanting money from the city. And it's not there. It's, you know, we've robbed Peter to pay Paul, whether it's the general fund, the fund balances, the transportation fund is below floor. The fair balance fund is below floor. Yeah, $7, $8 million to the police.
I think that's why when we look at investing in programs that actually result in cost savings to the city, which is great that you feel, it sounds like you feel strongly about the mental health component, and that's one of the ones that results in pretty significant cost savings. You know, I know we won't save $12 million in the first year, but you know, in that program in Oregon in 2017, they saved $12 million from the city's budget by investing in that mental health. So, I mean, I think that, you know, that is really a big part of it, is that we have to invest in order to get the cost savings. It's
I know that.
Yeah.
I need you all.
It's great that you're on board with, it sounds like you're, you know, on board with mental health, because that does result in the cost savings.
I do want to bring up one more time the demilitarization point, because when things like the JAG grant are voted on unanimously by both county and city, the grant does kind of fund like the startup of a lot of these programs, but it also means that down the line, there's going to have to be more money from the city or the county going towards staffing for things like the real-time crime center. It also means that's something that's called mission creep, according to research. So a lot of these like things that we're seeing like funded unanimously by city council and by the county, you know, they're boasted as something that like we get grants to like pay for the pilot programs, but it does cost taxpayer dollars down the line. So that's something too that we're hoping will be addressed.
And I know that too. And that's going to even be more so as we move forward. The government's going to say, I got a $500,000 grant over here. The only people can get this city would be if you're gonna match it after 3 years with 125,000. Cities and towns, we are fighting for money now. We killing off each other just so we can get some money by any means necessary. So when I was in committee meeting last week, and I voted on, because I wanted more detail in the public safety committee on the grants that we were getting from the Department of Justice and everybody else. The police department got 3 grants. All of the grants was technology basically based. For me, I don't have a problem with that. Because if, again, you have got people shooting guns in other cities, have proven it's just only what they said 3% coverage. The first place it'll go up when we get it is Cleveland Avenue area, Liberty Street. Then it may move to the south side, Wildtown, Clemensville Road, who knows? But again, and I know you all, you are feeling it. When you live in my neighborhood, and my residents, my constituents are calling me when people are being shot or they're hear shots, I have to address that. And I can't tell them, and I won't tell them, well, you know, if we just cut back on the police spending and blah, 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 they don't care nothing about what you want and I want. They just want to be safe. When I got elected in 2009, I had meetings and I asked my constituents, what do y'all want me to do? Back then, home invasions was you know, knocking people's doors down, going in, shooting up people. Yeah. They told me, my old people, my people with kids, my special folk, they want to feel safe. That's all I get when I do my surveys. Zeno tell you. All they wanted to be Boston Thurman, Garfield, my hot areas, Brownsboro Road. I got 2 areas, hot areas.
And we 100% don't want people's door getting knocked down. We want to create programming and systems and structures that prevent the conditions that create crime. We don't want to just be able to call the police after someone has been shot. That doesn't keep that person from being shot. That person still is dead. The person who gets robbed still is robbed, even if a police officer shows up on the scene after. We're trying to do things that are preventative rather than reactive to crime, which I think everybody can get behind.
Brittany, I hear you. And when you say everybody can get behind, people will say, yeah, that sounds good. But what about tomorrow night when they start shooting like they normally do about 7 o'clock? My thing is, all I want you guys to understand is I applaud you, I support you, I'm with you. But you still gotta remember the people that have to deal with this on a daily basis, that they wanna see police cars. I'm being real. They wanna see the police parked at the stop and rob up the street from my house all day. They wanna see the police parked at the Kangaroo stop and rob down on Brownsboro Road.
But here's my question, Mayor Pro Tem. I understand that people want to feel safe. I get it. I grew up in Boston Projects. I understand this. But at the same time, then on the other hand, we complain about mass incarceration. We complain about police brutality and how the police are treating Black and brown people and poor people. And so I feel like we have other cities that have already started this work, right? And the measurable outcomes are yet to be seen. Why is this not something that we can do? Because see, if we sick the police, we send them into these neighborhoods and folks start getting killed, then folks are upset because people are protesting and people are going, you know, they start making their way to the west side of town. So it's kind of like an endless cycle that we're trying to come up with prevention. You know, and I understand some of them are the voters, and I get that. I feel like when I read the comments in the journal, a lot of people are, you know, saying, well, the people want to feel safe. They want to feel safe. They're shooting and shooting. We're trying to stop the children, young folks, from shooting so that they won't have to do all of these nefarious things. And so I think a lot of people think that we're trying to create some utopia. We're asking for some pie in the sky that's just not going to happen. We've given the research, we're coming up with money amounts, but I feel like the real issue is that folks are afraid to confront this idea that we're trying to be preventative because we're taking money from the police, but all the research says the police don't keep the people safe. Now, how that I think it's gonna take our members, our elected officials, to put that out there, as opposed to just kind of falling into the same rhetoric from their voters, well, from one portion of their voters. I think that's where we're kind of stuck at.
Well, Forsyth County's got 8 wards, Winston-Salem got 8 wards, and you're gonna have 10 probably in another couple of years. And that the pie is broken up into 8 parts, right?
The at-large seats.
Correct.
Okay.
And see, if y'all on your game, you need to run somebody for that. You need to get ready for it. That's how you make change. They getting ready to put more people on that council. And if those two people don't think like none of you or me, then you really gonna be having hell to pay. And again, I wanted to tell you guys, I am the only one out of the council, and if you don't believe me, go back and look at all the tapes, that has been questioning our innovativeness when it came to policing. I am the only one that tried to stop the money, and I'm getting ready to work on that again. You talk about the $15 wage. Nobody got with me. Y'all need to be jumping on them people. Why is it nobody understands how important it is for our lowest paid employees to get $15 versus giving the people with the 60, 70,000? It's crazy. Well, they're the police and the fire. They need a 2% merit every year because they're police and fire. They need to get another bonus if they're a veteran because they're police and fire. I'd argue as to why a garbage person couldn't get why everybody that's a veteran can't get that perk. Well, we just really trying to keep the police and fire.
And we trying to keep the people. That's what
Right.
I'm missing that. Listen. My comrades on here, they are abolitionists. I respect their position. Mayor Pro Tem, we're trying to get some justice for Black people.
Go do it.
Reparations. That's what it is. They don't want to hear reparations.
And that's coming.
Something. We don't have money because the city gave the money to the police. That's what we're saying.
Right.
And we can pull
I
this
have
back
no
on Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm not against. Yeah. Again, go look at the
Mayor
tape.
Pro Tem, but we gotta Mayor Pro Tem. We trying to move from protest to policy. But we understand this is an uphill battle. Because the people that we are fighting with and for they are not empowered to come up to challenge city council. Yet city council, I know you ain't gonna like this, I'm not saying this to you specifically, but city council goes into these neighborhoods, the mayor goes when it's time for some votes, and they make promises to these people. My people are getting nothing, Mayor Pro Tem. We got to be able to get something for it. There is nothing to take even $7 million from $78 million and invest it in the people to see the reduction in crime, to see young people not fall into some of these illegal activities. That's all we're asking for.
To the choir. You're preaching to the choir.
Yes, ma'am.
Because if a vote comes up, I'm going to be the one go with the people on this.
Mm-hmm.
You're preaching to the choir. But all I am is one vote. I can't carry nothing.
So what we got?
I voted against the veterans' money. I voted against the 2%. I voted for the $15 and nobody went with me. I go to sleep good every night because I'm doing what I need to do. You need to be talking to the mother folk too.
Well, and they should have been here. I understand.
Right.
But see, you got to understand the rules. Understand the rules.
Okay.
North Carolina has a meeting law.
Okay.
When it comes to elected officials, we cannot all be in a meeting talking about issues, because now you circumvent, you right now, you don't upset the whole balance. You make, like back in the good old boy days, we are making action without the process. So city council, it's supposed to have been the mayor, me and Robert Clark.
Right.
But then the city attorney looked at it again. You got the chair and vice chair of finance and the mayor. You got the chair of general government and one of the committee members meeting all at the same time. Can't do that. And then the idea came up that you guys need to go to James Taylor in an open forum that you can meet, you can talk, you can present. They asked me, how did I feel about it? I said, do I have a choice? He said, not really. You can meet with them individually. You all can meet with them individually. Y'all can go to get Kevin Monday, go meet with him.
Yeah, because most of us live in his ward. And let me just say this, Mayor Pro Tem, we were not all that enthused about his nonverbal responses the last time at City Council. We do want to meet with Mr. Monday.
Right.
Yeah, oh, yeah, because most, if not all of us, I think one of us is in Councilmember Taylor's ward, but we are in Mr. Monday's ward. And when what's the other man was in there? Bessie was there. I would email him all the time. Mr. Monday gonna hear from us.
For sure.
And I think you got to remember, y'all, he's new. And I know you say, well, that don't mean nothing. He ran for office. Well, when people, when people go to a new job, they've been trained, you're new. I was new. But for me, because I've been doing this work for 40 years, I knew Earlene, Evelyn, all of us, Larry Little, I know how all of this works. He doesn't. It'll be up to his constituents to help him get up to speed as well as me. And I told him, we talked on a Zoom meeting before he got in, sworn in. I will be glad to discuss any issue with you to help you understand what's at stake. I have made that same offer to an Scipio, with T.T. Parman, John Larson, even with Jeff McIntosh. But everybody don't want to listen to people sometimes. And I respect that if they don't. But I do know this. I do know this, and I told Kevin this. You might want to listen to some people like me when it comes to these votes when they come up. Don't operate in a vacuum. I didn't. It is nothing for me to call Larry Little or somebody. Larry Little or VK Newell, Evelyn to talk to me, to bounce. But you got new people nowadays, y'all, they don't talk to nobody.
But they don't even, y'all vote for what they want for their wards, and then the people that live in you all's wards don't get what they want and need. That's not right. I feel like y'all have some power and authority to say, hey, if they're making all these moves in these other wards where there's not these high levels of poverty and crime, and everybody's voting yay, 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 somebody's got to start voting nay, 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 until our people get what they want and what's just.
And I do want to feedback.
I'm just saying.
I do want to feedback, Mayor Pro Tem. We're especially when you're talking about gun violence. I'm coming out here from a city where, I'm very fortunate to be able to afford to live in the neighborhood I live in here in California. I was in a neighborhood where my house was shot up twice, where every night I did go to sleep listening to the crackle of gunshots. I can tell you the difference between an AR-15 of a handgun and a shotgun, and the way that there's been process after process after process looking about how do you make these cities safer, how do you make these areas safer. And Maryland engaged in a program that has been extremely successful, that was studied by Gabby Giffords. She started a law center to prevent gun violence, and what they did was they took $5 million and they invested in two main areas, and one of them was mediation services, but one of the biggest areas of investment was youth services, places for young people who were on the street, who weren't in school, who weren't working, to get to become successful, to get life skills, to get job training. And that's what makes a program like Youth Build so important. Is it's not just about making things look good and having something to show up to do. It's about really creating a place where young people are able to develop themselves, become independent, and understand how to make better decisions. Troy was telling me a story about last Christmas Day. He had a participant that had graduated get into it with a person on his block, and he didn't know what to do, except he knew that his instinct of what to do was not right. So on Christmas morning, this kid called Troy and said, I need you to help me figure out the right response, because my response is going to get me in trouble. And those are the kinds of lasting partnerships that do transform an area, that do stop those gunshots at night.
As I say,
I think we presented a good case, Mayor Pro Tem.
I didn't say you didn't. I told you that from the very beginning. You guys, I got that.
I'm saying it just because we worked hard,
I read it. I got it. but I'm just trying to help y'all understand what it takes to move forward to get anything done.
Okay,
Y'all
so
understand, y'all understand the abolitionist, nonprofit, whatever world. I understand the political and the corporate world. Business. Government is business. You will never see me not vote for something that I believe in my heart is right and just. And you will never not ever hear me not question the system. But again, I got one vote. I've always voted for whether, again, when I brought up that we need to look at more innovative ways of how we police, oh, hell no, what is she talking about? I sit where you sit. Right now, the popo don't like me. You hear me?
We know.
They don't like me.
On your behalf.
And it did not start with that news conference.
We know.
It started when I started to question, why wouldn't we look at reallocating some of this money? I need you to also look at our recreation budget as well. Parks and Rec, go look at that budget. See what programs that we are putting on that you feel like we could cut and create more programs for you. Personally, I think that we have yet to update and become more innovative in our parks and recs. I've said that the whole 11, 12 years I've been on the council. What is it with y'all? Y'all like being stuck in the mud. I was
but you know what? It's because on the west side of town, they don't rely on the parks and rec.
But that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah,
that's why I'm telling you.
No interest.
I ain't mad at them. I grew up in the rec, just like you, Miranda.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a rec, if not two, in every Black community in the city. But the programs, I told them, were outdated. Whatever they offering is outdated.
So the Democrats on that city council need to be with you in pushing it. We got Scipio, we got Burke, who's an educator, we got Taylor. Y'all got to get together and put, and then I think Monday's a Democrat, y'all correct me. It's their awards. So they can't sit there and be silent and vote yay on some other stuff for somebody else. When we looking at, y'all, I'm getting revved up now, Lord. When we looking at everything that's going on with my people in the East Ward, the North Ward, until our detractors, no, I do not have to live there to say what I'm saying, because I've taught plenty of children who live there. So they got to say something. They cannot sit there and partner with other folks who are worried about another side of town. Meanwhile, look at what's going on with our children. Look at what's, we got the swimming pool down there that's not being used. We got the 14th Street wreck. We got the MLK wreck, which I grew up, when you grew up right around the corner. They have got to say something, because if they're not willing to do that, then why did the people even elect them?
Because they do. That's part of this whole deal. You can have 20, let's say 10,000 people that don't like your policies, your decision, but then you got 15,000 that's going to go to the polls and vote for you every time, because they do find whatever, something about you. Everybody, like I told you, this ain't Burger King, folks. We're not going to all get what we want when we want it, and everybody ain't going to like your Whopper either, or the way you cook your fries. I was a recipient of Upward Bound, Miranda. I would not have gotten to college if it hadn't been for Upward Bound.
Yes, ma'am.
At Winston-Salem State.
I got into it, dropped out, but I was there. I had the opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
Every Saturday, I had to go do Upward Bound.
That's
for
right.
5 hours at Winston-Salem State.
In the summertime, you had to go stay.
In the summer, I stayed on campus all summer at Winston-Salem State. I went to classrooms for science and math and communication.
Children now.
I learned how to be an archer expert. So what I'm saying is, you start to look at the other programs like Parks and Rec. You look at how many recs are in the urban core where the gun violence and all of that is. You look at it from up top. And you say, like right now, I want to bring back in the inner city, Miranda, youth baseball, softball. That's gone. But see, our kids grew up either swimming or playing softball or baseball. They really didn't grow, we didn't grow up with football and basketball. It was there. But when it came to the neighborhood, it was always softball or swimming or at the rec. I'm saying—
But now it's technology. These kids, you know, that outdoor stuff.
I got that.
Yes, ma'am.
But kids still like to play. You know, we can want them to go wherever the world is going, but a child still likes to play, whether it's baseball, football, soccer, skip rope, whatever. They still like to play. But that's where you have to offer a carrot with the education piece. If you start, let's say you at the rec at Carl Russell or at the Y Winston Lake, and you bring in a softball component down the street and the swimming lessons at the Winston Lake Waterworks Park. Now you got something, because our young people, you got to, as you know, educator, you got to have something that kind of helps keep them in the middle of it. Because if all you doing is wanting me to learn to read and write and do some math, I'm not interested in that, even as an adult. My attention span won't get me that. All I'm saying to you guys, look at parks and recs as well, okay?
Okay.
There's some money there. Parks and Rec, everybody knows, is generally for youth. Go get the money. Go look at that budget. And somehow try to figure out, call the city if you have to. William Royston, Director of Parks and Recs. Tell him you want to report on the participation levels at every recreation center within the city. Age, demographic.
He didn't do what he said he was going to do before, but we'll reach out to him.
You always give people the benefit of doubt, and you always give them another chance. See, Miranda, all my life, I give people 3 shots. When I was working, I gave my employees 3 shots to mess up. They all knew where they stood. When they got to the second one, you do anything else, you gone. Don't even try to talk to me about your mama, your babies. I don't want to hear it. Everybody deserves the benefit of doubt until they prove you wrong. And see, if William Royston, if y'all have reached out to him and he ain't reached back, then you need to let me know next time he don't reach back.
I will.
Because I do this. And they again, I told you, they don't like me no way, but I'm good with that. I'm an old lady with a switch and a belt and a broom. I beat people. I beat people to compliance. I support y'all, and don't think the rest of them don't know that on the council.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Because I like I told Miranda, I'm tired of talking.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to get a pilot program or launch on the board. And if I have to use whatever power I got, I will put, even though we ain't got no money, I'll figure out how to cut some money some kind of way to start a prototype launch of something. But you gotta pick what that's gonna be, 1, 2, 3. What you wanna do first, what's gonna give you the biggest bang for the buck? What is it that people will be able to readily see a success story? Because that's all people wanna do. They tired of your talking like they tired of me. Show me the results. So it's December. You're in front of Taylor in January. And if I need you to come to my committee meeting, Miranda, I'll go ahead and tell them that, because we're gonna have a long one in January. My committee is one of them long ones. I will see about putting you guys on the agenda for general government.
We'll be there.
I sure will.
All right. We thank you for your time, Mayor Pro Tem. You get to feeling better. Y'all, we got work to do.
Y'all need to pray for me, because this goddamn C. diff ain't no joke.
Oh, you have C. diff?
See, Miranda, they know. Y'all know what that is.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I had a relapse. I'm into the second round of this.
Oh, man. Well,
Zena tell you, I had a doctor's appointment Thursday. My gastro doctor.
yeah.
And I am like, I don't wish this on nobody.
No.
So you can
You are literally.
Where's everybody else at? They're gonna have to get here the next time.
Yeah. You're right. No, if you're making this time for us, there's
I'm with you, Brittany. I'm like,
yeah.
Miranda.
Yes, ma'am.
These grown folk, honey.
Right.
Some people, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm just throwing this out there. You got people that show up at that office down there every day at City Hall. Every day. For 8 hours. Ask me if I go to my office every day. Do I, Zena? You on mute.
No, ma'am.
Do I go to that office every day, Zena?
No, ma'am. But you're on the phone
Do I
every
be-
day and on that computer every day, all day.
Every day. Do I feel a need to go down there and sit in the office just so somebody can say the Mayor Pro Tem is in the house?
Right.
Nope. But you got council members that's their job. It is our job, but they at the office. I'm like, so what you doing at the office? Y'all need to get Miranda. Kevin is receptive. Y'all just make a plea, tell him. He's new.
Email, that's so, yeah.
No, you need more than email. Somebody got to make the call. Just like you call me, somebody got to make the call. Because when they pick up that phone and you say who you are, they go, uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Emails, people can look, emails, I got emails out the union. I try to stay on top of mine every day. But people are more receptive to a voice or this. I got to lay eyes on you and you got to lay eyes on me.
Okay, y'all, so we got to call Kevin.
So go work your votes. Y'all need 4 more votes. And if y'all don't need 4, yeah, I'd say you need 4 votes. Ms. Burke and them Larry, Earlene, you got to have 5 votes on the council.
I told them that.
And you need to go investigate that money that the county got sitting over there. Y'all need to go look at that one.
In control.
I wish we had a pittance of that money in the city. But it's like they got their own wish list for Christmas.
Pretty much.
And they don't even know where they're spending it. Like we ask them questions like, do you know what the organization is that you're funding? And they have no idea, no details about the organization at all.
They don't do housing and they proud of it. Even though they run the housing system, evictions and stuff. Go make them give up some of that money to help with rental system and eviction notice. That's what you go do. You put in the request, call Commissioner Fleming Alameen, Ted Kaplan, and Tanya McDaniel. Hold them accountable like you do me.
Yeah, because they don't
See,
get the Caladium.
Remember, I voted against that too with the city. I'm like, I ain't feeling that. Y'all need to hold them accountable, the 3 Democrats.
That's right.
And don't let them off the hook because they down there voting just to get along too.
Yes, they are. I promise you, you can listen to the public comments. We are on there every meeting. They know that we have eyes on them and they vote unanimously on everything. No accountability, no answer. They don't have no information about what they're voting on. And it's shameful. And we definitely are on them. We're on them.
Well, I look forward to seeing y'all in January. And if you need me to make a phone call to any other council members to meet with you, if they ignoring you, just let me know. Let me know. I'm not afraid to call them up and tell them y'all need to get your ass in gear.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll follow up, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all.
Thank you so
much. Happy holiday and y'all stay strong.
Thank you. You as well.
Right.
Well.